Imagine, right, spending billions of dollars engineering a vehicle that can, literally rewrite its own engine software over Wi-Fi, only to lose a $50,000 sale because your dealership's shiny new AI chatbot insulted a customer in the final 5 minutes of the deal.
Yeah, that's the reality right now.
It is. And welcome to Auto News Talk. You know, we are living in just an incredibly volatile era for the automotive industry. The vehicles themselves, they've basically transformed into these massive high-speed smartphones on wheels.
Exactly.
And the manufacturing operations are scaling at this chaotic global level. Yet, despite the billions poured into automation and these digital showrooms, the single most critical moment in this entire ecosystem remains a highly vulnerable, totally human conversation standing on a dealership lot.
Right. It's the ultimate collision of high-tech infrastructure and, well, high-touch reality. Because we've built all this unprecedented technological power to get a buyer in the door, but we're finding out the hard way that you simply cannot code the human element required to actually close a deal.
So for this segment of Auto News Talk, we're going to map out that exact terrain. We're going to start at the absolute macro level, looking at the sheer scale of global manufacturer software and production chaos.
Yeah, the big picture.
Exactly. And from there, we'll trace how the retail leaders are physically gathering to find lifelines in all this complexity. And finally, we're going to zoom right down onto the dealership floor, exploring that very real tension between deploying artificial intelligence and, protecting human empathy.
And really, the best place to start is at the top of the food chain, right? The manufacturers, the OEMs, because the shift from mechanical engineering to software architecture has just fundamentally broken the old rules of how a car is maintained.
Okay, let's unpack this because I'm so glad you brought up the software architecture. It feels like modern car issues are less about a loose bolt or a bad transmission, and more like your smartphone's music app suddenly crashing your camera.
Well, that's not an exaggeration at all. We are seeing that exact scenario play out on a massive scale.
We really are. Just look at a notice regarding Stellantis. It outlines a defect affecting over 848,000 Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles.
Boy, huge numbers.
Massive. And the issue is that when a driver puts the car in reverse, the rear-view camera image might just fail to appear on the screen. But here's the part that stops me in my tracks.
What's that?
The fix for this massive recall isn't, shipping out 800,000 replacement camera lenses to service departments. It is an over-the-air software update. No dealership visit required.
Yeah, and we really have to look closely at the underlying mechanism there because it's fascinating. The reported defect isn't an issue with the camera hardware itself. The physical lens is perfectly fine.
Right.
The issue is actually tied to the vehicle's radio software, which is intermittently stopping the camera feed from displaying.
Wait, walk me through that mechanism. How does a glitch in the radio software completely break a safety camera? In what world do those two systems even overlap?
Well, in the old days, they wouldn't, right? A radio was an isolated physical component with its own independent wiring. But in modern vehicles, components don't have direct, isolated connections anymore.
Okay.
They operate on shared network protocols. It's similar to an Ethernet ring or a digital highway inside the car. All the data, your braking sensors, your media player, your rear view camera, it all travels on that exact same network.
Wow.
So if the radio software gets caught in a loop or sends a corrupted packet of data onto that highway, it hogs the bandwidth. The camera's video feed literally gets stuck in digital traffic, it times out, and the driver gets a black screen.
So a hiccup in your entertainment system creates a literal safety hazard. That is terrifying, but also kind of incredible from an engineering standpoint, because they can just beam a fix through the air to almost 1 million cars across 4 different brands.
Exactly. That shared electronic architecture is, incredibly efficient for mass production. But it completely exposes the sheer scale of modern vulnerabilities. A single software glitch cascades across entirely different product lines simultaneously.
But, reading the Stellantis notice, I have a major point of skepticism.
Yeah.
It tells us the radio is causing the problem, but what it completely fails to answer is the root cause of the bug. Like, what specific line of code caused a media system to hijack a safety feature's bandwidth in the first place?
Right. They don't say.
No. To the public, the why inside that software remains a total black box.
Which is incredibly frustrating for consumers and, frankly, for the dealers who have to answer for it on the front lines.
Absolutely. And this software complexity isn't just an IT headache, right? It is physically bottlenecking production and strategic planning. If you look at the broader trends tracked by Car and Driver's News Hub, the current auto news cycle is just a masterclass in globalized chaos.
Yeah, the word I would use is fluid. Automakers are constantly having to pivot based on supply chains, software delays, shifting consumer sentiment. It's nonstop.
The Car and Driver coverage paints that picture perfectly. I mean, on one hand, you have U.S. Jeep Cherokee launches facing delays, but simultaneously, Toyota and Nissan are having to resume production over in Japan following earthquake disruptions.
It's all happening at once.
Right. And then you look over at Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis, and they are tracking record sales. It is a completely fractured landscape.
And within that fractured landscape, you've got automakers trying to guess what the consumer actually wants to drive next.
Which brings up, honestly, the most fascinating data point from that Car and Driver Hub. There is a notable shift happening in California vehicle registrations.
Yeah.
Pure electric vehicles are slipping, and hybrids are actually overtaking them.
When you map that out across the entire industry, it is a massive signal. I mean, California has traditionally been the absolute bellwether for automotive trends, especially regarding electrification.
Right, they set the tone.
Exactly. They have the most aggressive mandates and the most mature charging infrastructure.
So why are they pivoting backward to hybrids?
Well, because we've sort of exhausted the early adopter EV market. The people buying cars now are mainstream consumers. They want the fuel efficiency, they want the environmental benefits, but they are experiencing intense infrastructure anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, they don't want to map out charging stations for a holiday road trip. Hybrids offer the psychological safety net of a gas tank alongside the efficiency of a battery.
It's an ideological clash. I mean, the manufacturers are pouring billions into fully electric futures because of regulatory pressure, but the immediate on-the-ground reality is that hybrid demand is what's actually paying the bills.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, classic car culture refuses to die.
Oh, it is stronger than ever.
Yeah, Car and Driver highlights the immense strength of enthusiast events like the Woodward Dream Cruise and Pebble Beach. Plus, amidst all this talk of software networks and EV mandates, Ford is reportedly planning for a possible four-door Mustang.
Which really proves that legacy brands are walking a tightrope right now. They have to innovate for the future without alienating the enthusiasts who built their brand identity in the first place.
It is a wild juggling act. I will say, though, while Car and Driver gives us the crystal clear data showing hybrids winning out, what the coverage doesn't explain is the definitive motive for the California buyer at this exact moment.
Right. We don't have the full picture.
Exactly. Is it purely charging access? Are insurance rates on full EVs scaring them off? We have the math, but we don't have the definitive psychological why.
And that is the billion-dollar question that every OEM board of directors is scrambling to answer.
So if the global manufacturers are juggling this much chaos, over-the-air updates they have to push blindly, shifting consumer demands, production delays, imagine being the dealership owner who actually has to buy and sell these things on the ground.
Yeah, the pressure is immense.
It is. And that brings us to how the retail sector is responding.
They are desperately seeking out survival tools.
Right. And according to an announcement regarding the upcoming N80 show, they are doing it in person. The National Automobile Dealers Association show is gearing up to bring together dealers, automakers, and exhibitors for 4 days of education and franchise meetings in Orlando.
NADA is always, the ultimate temperature check for retail anxiety in this industry.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. With all this incredible digital connectivity, we just talked about cars updating themselves from space and dealers running virtual showrooms. Do thousands of business owners really still need to fly to Florida just to figure out how to sell cars?
Well, the reality of human psychology says yes. When the ground is moving this quickly beneath your business model, you need to look your peers in the eye and just ask, are you seeing this too?
The announcement definitely supports that urgency. The focus of the upcoming show is heavily centered on technologies and products affecting auto retail. And ADA is actively warning attendees that preferred housing options are going to vanish quickly.
People are flocking there.
Yeah, but the detail that truly proves your point is about the expo. The massive floor meant to showcase all these new retail technologies is completely sold out of space.
And just think about the economics of that. A sold-out tech expo demonstrates an immense, almost desperate hunger among dealership leaders. They're watching their margins compress, they're watching the vehicles become exponentially more complex, and they are actively searching for actionable software and strategies to stabilize their operations.
They are starving for adaptation. But, as a business owner reading this announcement, I find it incredibly vague on the details.
How so?
Well, we know the floor is sold out, but what this announcement purposely leaves out is exactly what specific breakthrough technologies or products are taking up all that space. Like, are they buying new inventory trackers, customer relationship management systems? What is the star of the show actually going to be?
Given the current landscape, I'd say it is almost a guarantee that a massive footprint of that floor space is dedicated to artificial intelligence and automated digital communication, which transitions us to the most delicate part of the modern auto ecosystem.
Exactly. Let's zoom all the way down to the microscale. We've talked about the global manufacturers, we've talked about the anxiety of the dealership owners. Now we are standing right on the showroom floor. With all these new AI tools flooding the market, how do dealers actually interact with a human being who walks through the door or picks up the phone?
And this is where we are seeing the most dangerous missteps in the industry right now.
I am genuinely worried that we are in danger of turning our salespeople into spec-spouting bots while simultaneously spending millions trying to make our actual bots sound like humans.
It's an inversion of roles that serves absolutely no one.
No. An opinion piece published in Digital Dealer by Amit Maheshwari tackles this head-on. The central argument is that AI is an incredible tool, but it should only be used to augment and support human employees from behind the scenes, rather than replacing them in high-stakes customer conversations.
Right.
Dealerships absolutely must establish a firm, human-first boundary.
The distinction Maheshwari makes between process and relationship is vital here. AI is unmatched for the process side of the business. It is highly valuable for transcribing service calls, summarizing a customer's history in the CRM, identifying missing data, or alerting a manager if a phone call sentiment turns negative.
It handles the administrative heavy lifting so the human can focus.
Precisely. Because when an inbound phone call happens, that means a customer is high intent. They've likely spent weeks researching online, and now they are close to a decision. Bots are perfectly fine for routine, low-stakes operations like booking an oil change.
Right. Simple stuff.
But active negotiations, dealing with a buyer's anxiety over trading in a car they are upside down on, that requires context and empathy that a large language model simply does not possess.
And the consequences of ignoring that boundary are severe. The piece includes a wild cautionary tale about an incident at BMW Toronto.
Oh, that was a disaster.
It really was. An AI bot deployed by the dealership allegedly offered a customer an entirely incorrect buyback offer on a vehicle. It resulted in real financial loss and a massive wave of negative public relations.
It perfectly illustrates the liability of automation. A bot doesn't understand the nuance of a frustrated customer, nor does it grasp the legal weight of generating a binding financial offer in error. Over-automating the customer relationship in the name of cost-saving efficiency carries catastrophic reputational risks.
Yeah, Maheshwari makes a brilliant case for protecting the brand by keeping AI in the background. However, from a purely operational standpoint, his commentary is missing the hard math.
What do you mean?
Well, he tells us the devastating risks of doing AI wrong, but we don't get exact metrics on how much time or money dealerships actually save by using these behind-the-scenes tools. Without definitive ROI data, it is hard for a dealer to justify the initial software investment.
That's a fair point. The financial data on AI efficiency is still sort of catching up to the marketing hype, but the qualitative evidence constantly points back to the necessity of the human element.
Which leads us perfectly to the final piece of the puzzle. If bots can't close the deal, the human has to. Another article in Digital Dealer written by John Traver zooms in on the practical side, specifically the most critical window of that human interaction. The first 5 minutes of a sales conversation.
And if you lose those 5 minutes, you lose the deal entirely.
Absolutely. Traver argues that early momentum in a dealership is built or lost based almost entirely on conversation tone and emotional engagement, rather than transactional vehicle details.
If we trace the psychology here, it completely inverts decades of traditional car sales training.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, the old school priority was to qualify the buyer instantly, figure out what model they want, what their budget is, and just hammer them toward an appointment as fast as possible.
But Traver points out that jumping straight into payments or aggressively pushing for a showroom appointment makes the chat feel incredibly one-sided and transactional. The buyer's guard goes up immediately, and it becomes remarkably easy for them to just hang up the phone or walk off the lot.
Because you are treating them like a commodity.
Yeah.
The customer just wants to know if you have a blue SUV in stock. They can find that on a website.
Right.
They're calling a human because there is an underlying friction in their life they need solved.
And that leads to the most counterintuitive, memorable piece of advice in the entire article. Travers instructs salespeople to skip the inventory questions entirely at the start of the conversation. Do not ask about cars at a car dealership. Instead, salespeople need to focus heavily on the buyer's motivation, the why, before ever asking about the what.
It sounds crazy to a traditional sales manager, but it is brilliant.
He suggests asking open-ended questions like, how has your current vehicle been treating you? Or, what got you thinking about making a change right now?
Think about what those questions accomplish. If someone answers, well, we just found out we are having twins and my sedan isn't going to fit 2 car seats. You are no longer a salesperson negotiating a price. You're a trusted advisor helping a growing family solve a safety problem. Empathy completely disarms the transaction.
Trevor believes in this so much that he says managers should be actively listening to real staff calls just to coach this specific behavior. It proves that despite the billions of dollars automakers spend on connected networks and AI digital retail, human curiosity remains the absolute most vital tool for actually closing a deal.
You can automate the funnel, but you cannot automate trust.
I will say, though, I wish Trevor had brought the receipts. The article mentions an unnamed dealership that improved its appointment show rates using this exact empathy-first method, but it completely omits the specific figures.
Yeah, they leave that out.
Right. Was it a 5% bump? A 50% improvement? We know the psychology is sound, but we don't get the scale of the victory.
Even without the exact percentages, the baseline truth remains. When people feel heard, their resistance drops.
We have covered a massive amount of ground, spanning from global software networks all the way down to a 5-minute conversation on a showroom floor. So let's pull this all together. What are the dominant patterns here?
Well, looking across all this source material, I'd say 3 major themes clearly emerge. First is the reality of software as the central nervous system. We saw that explicitly in the Stellantis recall, where a radio bug can hijack a safety camera through shared network architecture. And we saw it in car and drivers tracking of how rapidly manufacturers have to pivot their supply chains around tech and EV shifts.
Right. The vehicle is no longer a mechanical island. It's a node on a network.
Exactly. The second theme is a desperate hunger for adaptation. That was highlighted perfectly by the totally sold-out tech expo at the upcoming NADA show. Retail leaders know the ground is shifting, and they are urgently seeking the digital tools to survive it.
And that leads right into the third theme.
Right. The premium on human empathy. This was reflected powerfully in Maheshwari's warnings against using AI bots for high-stakes negotiations and Travers' breakdown of the 5-minute human-centered sales conversation.
You know, you're laying those themes out, and honestly, I am seeing massive friction between these different forces. There are 2 major ideological contradictions at play here.
Oh, definitely.
The first is the manufacturer's massive strategic push for full EVs battling against the immediate on-the-ground reality of hybrid vehicles dominating registrations. Automakers are trying to force an electric future, but as Car and Driver showed us in California, the mainstream consumer is pushing back by choosing hybrids.
There's a severe disconnect between what is being mandated and what is actually being bought.
And the second point of friction is the drive for extreme dealership efficiency through automation versus the catastrophic risks of letting bots handle nuanced customer interactions. Dealerships are desperate to cut costs using AI, but as we saw with the BMW Toronto incident, removing the human safety net carries immense financial and reputational danger.
Which really brings us to the ultimate practical takeaway for anyone navigating this industry. Technology, data platforms, and over-the-air updates are incredibly powerful at capturing a lead, getting a customer in the door, and keeping the vehicle running safely. But that final crucial mile of the transaction, the vulnerable moment where someone decides to part with their hard-earned money, still absolutely requires an empathetic human being.
Technology sets the stage, but the human closes the curtain. I love that. The cars are driving themselves, the software is updating itself from the cloud, but at the end of the day, people still buy from people.
They always will.
I want to leave you with a thought. The next time you call a business, whether it is a dealership, a bank, or a contractor, pay attention to the first 5 minutes. Are you being rushed into a transaction by an automated script, or is a human being actually taking the time to ask you why you called in the first place? That difference is everything. Thank you so much for tuning in to this segment of Auto News Talk.
you.